What's a TV show that you used to love but not many people remember? When I was a kid, my sister and I would watch a show called Sagwa, the Chinese Siamese cat. I never met anyone else who watched it as a kid until one of my exes mentioned that she watched it when she was younger. I'm kind of curious how many of you watched or remember it. Early edition. Kyle Chandler played a dude in Chicago who would get the newspaper a day early. Every week he would try to help people who were in the headlines. It's ridiculous I can't stream this anywhere. Probably super dated since it aired on CBS, but my family used to tune in every week to watch it when I was a kid. I used to watch this children's show called Today's Special and no one else seems to remember it. It was about this mannequin in the mall that comes to life when the mall shuts down. He was friends with the mouse and some lady that was also there for some reason. Maybe I made it up or something, I don't know. If I understood how to give you awards, I would give you and the person who said Soap many of them. Soap is a top 10 sitcom for me and always will be, right up there with Police Squad, which most folks will not remember either, MASH, Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, another one folks may not know or remember, Scrubs, Newhart, IT Crowd, Arrested Development, 30 Rock and Parks and Rec. I loved that show too. I remember going to the school library and asking for A Tale of Two Cities. At probably 8 or 9 years old, the librarian kinda huffed and said that's a little advanced for you. What ... Did you see it on Wishbone or something? Still pisses me off when I think about it. Undeclared. Fucking Fox killing off any good shows it signed up for. It had so many actors in the early stages of their career. Judd Apatow, Seth Rogen, Jay Baruchel, Charlie Hunnam, even a cameo from Adam Sandler, came after Freaks and Geeks was cancelled and it was the jumping off point for Superbad to get made. I used to love the Weird Science TV show. I don't think I've ever met someone else who watched it besides the one girl whose house I first saw it at. She wasn't even watching it, her dad was, but I was hooked. Also from that time, Duckman. I didn't love that one, but what a weird, unique show. You thrust your pelvis, huh? Ed, it makes me so happy that you guys were watching this weird shit too. If anyone finds out where to stream Weird Science, please post or send me a DM. Out of this world, I absolutely loved this show. I have yet to meet someone who remembers it, and I was pretty little when it was on. It's about a teen girl who has an alien dad who talks to her through a crystal on her nightstand. She comes of age, gets special powers, and hijinks ensue. First place I ever saw Ryan Reynolds or Nathan Fillion. I remember a scene where someone was raving to Ryan Reynolds' character about Nomar Garcia coming to the hospital to visit sick kids and how he was so wonderful with them, and RR's character was like, did he heal them? Because that's what I do. My brother and I still quote that line to each other and crack up. Drop Dead Diva. There's a smallish cult following for it out there, but I haven't heard anyone bring it up in years. Looking back on it, I'm not huge on the concept, but it was one of my favorites to watch as a teen. Another huge one is Sense8. I was obsessed with this show and the cast, yet it was cancelled so early on. I'm still pissed at Netflix for that. No one besides me has ever seen it in my friend group, and people look at me like I'm crazy when I bring it up and fangirl about it, lol. Frisky Dingo. It is an Adam Reed Adult Swim show. They did it right before they got Archer. It has 2 seasons and has an amazing cliffhanger at the end of the 2 seasons. Couldn't recommend it more. Ed at H. John Benjamin is not in this. It must have been a fever dream. When I was a child, I often saw a series about a dinosaur family with the dad wearing one of those lumberjack shirts. Ed, yes, I already know it's called Dinosaurs. In Germany we called it Die Dinos. The dinosaurs. Please stop commenting the name, lol. I still laugh thinking about the one where Dick and Mary are supposed to go on a picnic, but get trapped in the library, I think, but he starts putting the moves on her anyway. I'm beginning to think you planned this all along. Actually, my plan was for us to be doing it right now, under a tree by the reservoir. On the ground? Oh, no, I brought newspaper. My favorite scene was when William Shatner appeared as the big giant head. I looked out the window, and I saw something on the wing of the plane. The same thing happened to me. Shatner was in the Twilight Zone episode Nightmare at 20,000 feet where he saw the gremlin on the wing of the plane. 20 years later John Lithgow played the same role in Twilight Zone, the movie. Brimstone. From the late 90s, Ezekiel Stone, a cop, is killed in the line of duty and sent to hell. Then several demons escape hell and run amok on Earth. Stone and the devil make a deal and Stone is recruited to recapture the demons and send them back to hell. Short-lived, only one season. I remember it being pretty good. Grounded for Life. My friend and I used to watch this all the time and we still saw keeping it fresh to each other. Titus used to watch this show religiously. I was pretty upset it got cancelled. Andy Richter controls the universe. I'm not even sure if it lasted a full season, but from what I remember I thought it was pretty funny. 8 Simple Rules for Dating My Teenage Daughter. I loved Three's Company and John Ritter. I thought this show was pretty good. It's sad it ended so soon because of John Ritter's passing. There was a TV show in 2006 starring Taye Diggs called Daybreak. It was basically Groundhog Day with a few twists. He was a cop who was framed and every time he woke up, he would restart his day. Except say, if he was shot and passed out he would wake up at the start of that day with a gunshot wound, bleeding in his bed next to his wife. He restarted but his body didn't. I loved the show. It was a crazy framed job. The day may have repeated but it was wildly different each time. He did get shot and woke up one day bleeding in bed. It ran for 13 episodes and never received much of an audience. I remember hearing at the time it was because everyone expected each episode to be too similar. It was so good. Mystery Science Theater 3000. I swear no one but me and my friends have heard of this show. Even though they made a couple of new seasons on Netflix, the original show ran through the 90s. It's a show where a guy and his robots, puppets, watch bad movies and make fun of them. The movie will play, and they will be there in silhouette cracking wise at the movie. Life. It was a crime drama on NBC back in 2007 starring Damian Lewis as a wrongfully convicted LAPD officer who had recently been released from maximum security prison after 12 years due to incomplete evidence, got a hefty settlement and detective badge upon release. It was my first introduction to Lewis and his character was so different from any other detective on TV back then. Super zen, unfamiliar with the new world, and just really fucking funny without trying to be. Sarah Shaley was his partner and I had a huge crush on her because of that show. Only lasted 2 seasons and didn't have a proper resolution. I fucking loved it though. Nobody remembers it but there was a show on Fox in the early 90s called Strange Luck. It was about a guy who survived a plane crash when he was a child and since then he's had weird things happen to him every day, to the point where it's basically an unpredictable superpower. Like, he goes to get lunch at a diner where they sell lotto tickets, and he always pays for his lunch by using what little money he has to buy a ticket, which always wins just enough. His apartment gets broken into pretty much every day, and he makes a living by selling photos to the local paper because he always seems to be in the right place at the right time. It only lasted a season but some of the episodes used to be on YouTube. It was kind of cool concept that was running on the heels of X-Files but it didn't take off. So many of these are relatively popular. I'm currently watching Earth, Final Conflict on Prime. That's one based on the work of Gene Roddenberry that didn't get super popular. Low-budget sets and dated CGI abound, but it's great for sci-fi intrigue. One that I always remember from my childhood, but never see a place to watch is Forever Night. The protagonist is a vampire cop in Toronto. Doug, don't hear about it much, but I still sing. Patty, you're the pickle on my coleslaw. Patty, you're the sugar in my tea. Patty, you're the relish on my hot dog. And Patty, you're the mayonnaise for me. Whoa whoa whoa. And also, another great song from Doug via the Beats. I eat my sugared cereal but it makes my teeth bacterial. If you're feeling kind of cruddy, just stick right by your buddy and don't eat too much fried food. We owe a killer tofu. We owe a killer tofu. Nowhere Man. Bruce Greenwood stars as a guy who wakes up and no one remembers who he is, including his wife. All he has is a photo that is a clue to what is really going on. He runs around every week trying to uncover the truth. It was kinda ahead of its time. Feel like this show would have done better in era of social media. The Sarah Jane Adventures. I highly doubt anyone even knows this. Edit. Wow, I never thought anyone would know about this, but considering the fact that I never dove into the Doctor Who world, so as a young kid I didn't know the connection of the series. I loved it as is without knowing the relevance. I feel like Freaks and Geeks is the opposite and one of those shows that's much more relevant and discussed now than it was when it came out. Like at the time it was nothing, but now because of the cast and Apatow and because it was genuinely so good, it gets brought up all the time. I only ever heard of it and watched it in the last like 10 years, whereas Wonder Years was popular at the time but does seem to be stuck as a nostalgic thing. Even though it's great too. Judging by these answers, it looks like about 90% of you are around my age, 40ish. Please do yourselves a favor, and if you don't already, do the following. Eat your vegetables, take your vitamins, engage in weight-bearing exercises, and get some cardiovascular exercise. Our 50s are coming sooner than we think, and the better we take care of ourselves now, the better our lives will be in the coming decades. Totally not relevant to TV, but it's honestly what struck me while reading these answers. Also, the show in the 80s the girl whose dad was an alien and she could briefly stop time putting her index fingers together. I don't remember its name but I loved it. But it's one of those forgotten shows that I love to watch. I wish more people remembered it. I think calling it forgotten is pretty harsh, depending on your criteria, but that might just be the circles I move in. I actually rewatched it for the first time in maybe 15 years in the first half of this year. It has some good stuff, though a lot of clunkers too, like most direct. Its biggest problem is most of the characters are flat or dull, though Robert Picardo's The Doctor is fantastic and easily one of my favorite characters in all Trek. I maintain that Voyager was the answer to everyone that complained 90s Trek was too cerebral and not enough like the original series. Voyager was mostly action-adventure one-off stories, minimizing overarching plot in favor of bizarre think pieces like Tuvix or the Clone Goo, and lots of weird and interesting crewmates bumping heads. It felt campy in a 60s Trek way, and while I definitely prefer Next Gen, I think it was great to have both perspectives on around the same time. Time Squad. It was this cartoon in the early 2000s where this gang of a kid, a robot, and a cop go back in time to correct history. One episode I remember is the squad finds out that all of Edgar Allan Poe's works all of a sudden never got created because he was actually a very fun-loving and happy guy, all pink and rainbows. So the squad has to go back to convince him to be a miserable, dark-hearted person so that his writings last in history. Super fun premise and the voice actors are great. 7 Days. I love this show. Frank Parker going back in time every week. I was the only kid I knew who loved it. Illiter. It's this weird mid-90s CBBC show that gave me nightmares. It's on YouTube. The acting is awful but the two men in black, Chasing the kid from their world and pushing into ours still creeps me out. Aquila, another CBBC show about two kids who find an alien spaceship and go on adventures with it. Braceface, kid gets braces and suddenly has special powers caused by her braces. It's just a nice show. Masked Rider, everyone remembers the Power Rangers, some VR troopers and Beetleborgs, but Masked Rider is forgotten. I loved it. The American footage is cheesy, but the Japanese footage is awesome. Mystic Knights of Ternonag, it was awful but I watched it before the Power Rangers on Fox Kids. Do Over Before You, Gossip Girl, even the stepfather Penn Badgley starred in a show about an adult, funnily enough an overworked stressed-out paper salesman who gets transported into his younger body back in his high school years. I really liked this show and it was cancelled after one season. Also Everwood was pretty great, both WB shows from back in the day. Kidnation, amazing show encouraging children to be proactive, independent, and learn to work and communicate together. Cancelled and buried in controversy after one season. BC, an army of PTA moms claim that kids living on their own in an unsupervised town, like, who did they think was shooting the show, Ghosts, was akin to child labor. I roll. Bearcats, which ran for just one season in 1971. It was about two guys driving around the West, in the early 1900s, in a Stutz Bearcat car, solving mysteries and defeating bad guys. The payment they always demanded from clients was a signed blank check. My memories of that show feel like a fever dream now, and I doubt anyone else who sees this thread will remember it. But it was campy cool, like an early predecessor of the A-Team. Evening Shade Now and the Game Over My Dead Body. The Equalizer, 80s show, moonlighting A Car Is Born, Reborn coupling crime story. Hill Street Blues homicide, Life on the Street Life. Mind Your Language. WKRP in Cincinnati. Traders Training Day. The Thornbirds. The Thin Blue Line. Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip. Sledgehammer Reaper. Police Squad. The Pretender. Apologies, I got a little carried away. There was an NBC series called Third Watch that my mom and I loved to watch in the late 90s/Shirley OOs. It wasn't a normal cop drama. It combined intertwined and separate storylines between characters in the NYPD, FDNY, as well as some doctors in some NYC hospitals. They even made a special 9/11 episode that aired almost a month after the actual event. I've always wanted to go back and rewatch it, because I haven't seen it since I was a kid, but I could never find it on a streaming site. Ready or Not, an early 90s Canadian teen dramedy. That show taught me about everything, from what I shouldn't smoke, to the birds and the bees, to racism. This show in Degrassi definitely touched base with a lot of heavy and dark topics. Also, the cast would have been my age at the time, so it felt relatable. I have yet to meet someone IRL who remembers Ready or Not. Fun fact, Ryan Gosling was in an episode before launching into stardom. There used to be this show on Nickelodeon about a girl from another dimension. She had a dinosaur-looking friend that couldn't breathe in our dimension, so he would stay in her backpack. They would take kids back into their dimension to fight their enemies. I've been looking for the name of this show forever but can't find it. I've asked on our tip of my tongue and never even got a single attempt at an answer. I think about it all the time and wish I could find it just to make the torture end. Friday the 13th, the TV series. It has nothing to do with the movie series. It's about an oldish man and his two assistants who run an antique shop. They hunt for haunted or cursed artifacts, keeping them safe where they can't hurt anyone. It used to be on somewhat late at night on the weekends and was one of my faves around the age of 12 to 14. I wouldn't be surprised if that Rick and Morty episode where Summer works at Satan's antique shop is inspired by it. The Littlest Hobo. I watched this so much as a kid, Canadian show, a German Shepherd dog traveled around helping people and outsmarting bad guys. He would never settle with anyone, just kept wandering and helping people. I can still sing the theme song. Maybe tomorrow I'll want to settle down. Until tomorrow I'll just keep moving on.